Thanks, Ron. Appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is Hareesh Singireddy. I'm a solutions architect here at AWS. And today, I want to talk about the amount of storage that we have seen on S3 and focusing on a security perspective. How do you protect your sensitive data as you get it onto S3 on AWS, right? So Amazon Macie, as Ron was describing, is a really critical security product that we have that helps you do it. So maybe quick introduction about the service itself on the key drivers of where the service is coming from, right? So as different organizations that have started using AWS and has been using AWS for a number of years, they're generating growing volumes of data. There's usually hundreds of gigabytes, and in some cases hundreds of petabytes, right? So as you gather this much of amount of data from your businesses, which is at this point of time, if you look at any business, data is really important, right? You cannot just go without data, and the insights that you get out of data often drives your business outcomes. So having the data is really important, but having it and making sure that you're able to protect the data, the contents of the data, as well as making sure that your sensitive data, wherever it's sitting in your environment, identifying that and classifying that is becoming increasingly important as well. And for security teams, it becomes difficult and expensive and time consuming to identify where the sensitive data is sitting in your environments and continuously monitor the data, how it's being shared either within the organization, outside the organization, wherever the data might be used, right? So security teams are working super hard to maintain that secure layer on top of the data. And the traditional security tools that you use, often require you to take on the monitoring and monitoring the data access policies, the complexity of developing and updating your custom data classifications, right? And on top of that, if you are in a regulated industry, you might have to be compliant with multiple regulations, right? And every regulation has a way of considering a particular piece of data as sensitive data. And as you go through multiple regulations, you need to be aware of what's considered security sensitive data. Where is it sitting in my environment? Am I protecting it well? Who's accessing that sensitive data, and so on and so forth, right? And that's where Amazon Macie as a service is helping out our customers. So Amazon Macie is a fully managed data security and data privacy service. So it uses pattern matching and machine learning behind the scenes to discover and protect your sensitive data in AWS. So what does it mean by that is, as you leverage Amazon S3 to store your data, Amazon Macie gives you that scalability across all of AWS accounts that you own, across all of your S3 buckets and data sitting in it, to give you that visibility of what's happening in that S3 environment and evaluate your security posture. And once you have the visibility of your security posture, then go into the data set that you have on S3. Discover sensitive data. It could be standard sensitive data, data categories like PII data, financial information, names, date of birth information, things like that, as well as your specific custom sensitive data. It could be your IP developed internally at your organization. It could be names of the projects. It could be any number of sensitive information that's supposed to be staying internal to your organization, right? And that's supposed to be controlled in terms of privacy. And then having that capability across all of your AWS infrastructure and having the ability to centrally manage them at scale and automating the security posture and automating the security controls to take actions when a sensitive piece of data is discovered in your data set. All of those capabilities are available within Macie. So let's dive into each one of them in detail to see how it works and what it offers and how you can leverage it today. Right. So to begin with, let's talk about gaining visibility and evaluating your security posture. Right. So take a look at your current AWS environment. Right. In a typical environment, there's multiple AWS accounts in an AWS organization setup. Right. You have multiple organization units, you have multiple accounts, and then you have different security layers on top of each of those accounts to control what each account can do. And then every AWS account has a set of S3 buckets, and you might be leveraging some of the buckets for very specific applications. Some of the buckets might have shared data sets. So across your AWS account portfolio, you need to have that visibility of how many Amazon S3 buckets do I have? What type of storage amount that I'm maintaining, right? And what's the object count from an S3 bucket perspective? But then also understand how the bucket policies on these S3 buckets are set up. Are any of these buckets publicly accessible? Because if they are publicly accessible, you need to be aware of it, and you need to control what goes into those buckets. What has already gone into those S3 buckets. Who has accessed those buckets, right? You need to be able to take actions on those buckets. In similar way, are these buckets encrypted? How many of those buckets do you have unencrypted? And if these S3 buckets are being shared, who has access to this? Are you sharing these S3 buckets, within the AWS account or within your organization, to other AWS accounts that you own, or do you share these buckets externally, meaning any AWS accounts that's not part of your AWS organizations? And as well as, if you're replicating S3 buckets, where are you replicating these to? What external accounts are you replicating this to, right? You need to have this information at a central location for the security teams so that they can make a decision quickly on what's being uploaded into your S3 buckets and what's being accessed and what's being maintained. And Macie gives you that one-stop shop, as a dashboard, look into that visibility across your S3 environments. Then once you know your security posture, the second most important feature of Amazon Macie is the ability to discover sensitive data. You can run sensitive data discovery jobs within Macie, and within each of those jobs, you can select the target for data discovery. This could be one security bucket, one S3 bucket, or multiple S3 buckets, or within an S3 bucket, very specific prefixes. So you have control over what part of your S3 environment do you want this sensitive discovery job to scan, right? And then you would be able to schedule these jobs to meet compliance requirements. Do you need to have a scan result every week? Do you need to have it every month? It depends on your business case and your business use case, right? So you can create and schedule these jobs. And within each job, you can define the scope of what Amazon Macie, the sensitive discovery job can scan and should scan. The first scope is obviously selecting which data set you need to scan. But then on top of that, what object criteria do you have for this job? It could be tags, it could be file extensions on these objects, it could be modified time, something like you have an S3 bucket, there's a continuous influx of data that's coming into the S3 bucket, and then you have a sensitive data discovery job that runs every week. So you can create a job that looks at object criteria and looks at objects that are modified in the last week, last 7 days, and only scans those and tries to find sensitive data in those. So you'd be able to really scope down to the core of your S3 environment in these jobs. And once the jobs are run, you'd be able to look at the jobs, review the status, and then also the findings that come out of the job that we'll talk about in a second here. And once you have these findings, you'd be able to take action on them. You'd be able to automate the actions that you can take on these sensitive data discovery jobs. Right? For example, let's say you have a non-production environment which is supposed to have a masking step while it's getting refreshed from a production environment. None of the social security numbers should be active in your non-production environment. Let's say you run a Macie sensitive security job, and it discovers that there are SSNs discovered in these data sets. You'd be able to automate the masking of those sensitive pieces of data that you have discovered in your own S3 environment. And you can do that in an ongoing fashion, right? With scheduled jobs, you'd be able to do this as often as you need to, and you have the control over the scope of the job and the type of the job you can run. And then moving on to, while Amazon Macie is providing you those two core functionalities, right, giving you visibility across your S3 environment on the status or the security posture, and then an ability to scan your S3 environments and find out the sensitive data within your S3 environment. The next capability is ability to do both of this at a scale, because as we have seen with enterprise customers and even startups at this point of time, every organization starts with a few AWS accounts, but as they recognize the value of having multiple AWS accounts as part of security posture, having that security boundary and having multiple AWS accounts to have for multiple purposes. You might have a central networking account, you might have one for shared services, or you might have an AWS account for every single application in your organization. So that can grow to hundreds of different and thousands of different AWS accounts at a point, right? So Amazon Macie gives you that central capability to manage these AWS accounts and manage your Macie discovery jobs at scale across your AWS account from a single point of control plane. And how does it do that? You would be within Amazon Macie, you would be able to select one of the AWS accounts as an administrator account, and rest of the AWS accounts would be members. What that means is your administrator account can create jobs on behalf of the members. So your security team can directly go into the administrator account and define what standard sensitive data discovery jobs needs to be scheduled and at what intervals. And every member account, as they join your AWS organizations, will have these scans automatically happening on those AWS accounts, and you getting the reports automatically. And then similarly, as I mentioned, Macie is a fully managed sensitive data discovery and data privacy service. So by default, it comes with fully managed sensitive data types, meaning the standard sensitive data types like financial information, bank account numbers, national IDs like passport numbers, social security numbers in the US, other personally identifiable information like medical and credentials and secrets, AWS secret keys and private keys. All of this is standard sensitive data types that come by default with Macie. So when you create a sensitive discovery job, you can select these standard types as part of the criteria, and Macie can go in and recognize those data types for you and create findings showing you what type of data has been discovered in your data set, where in your S3 environment is that discovered, how many occurrences, right? Like for example, if you have a data set that holds personal identifiable information like names, it would be able to identify how many number of occurrences have happened of a particular type, and based on that, you can be making decisions like what level of security classification do I need to assign to a particular data set, right? So you'd be able to do that based on this, and not just the managed sensitive data types, right? As AWS is continuously evaluating these data identifiers, we are adding new data identifiers as we go, which are available to you instantly as soon as they are added, right? But then, as I mentioned, you would be able to do this with your custom defined sensitive data types as well. These are data types that are unique to your environment, unique to your organization, right? These could be regular expressions that that have a pattern that Macie needs to recognize in the data set. Or it could be keywords. It could be a project name that you want to discuss in your you want to discover in your own data sets, right? Or it could be words that you want the Macie discovery job to ignore, right? That might be part of, for example, as you mask your data from production to non-production, you might be using some standard names within your masking to replace the customer names. And then you can add them to your custom defined data types and say, we are using that as a standard name like John Doe, and please ignore all of those in your sensitive data discovery job. And similarly, you can do that with regular expressions. You can do that with keywords as well. And you can add both of these data types to a single job. So you can say, discover personal PII data in my data set along with these three custom defined sensitive data types. And this is your scope. Go run the job. And Macie would be able to go scan your data, find out where the sensitive data is sitting, and then provide you that findings. And then Macie also has supported file and storage formats that it can scan. So when it goes into your S3 buckets, it performs a deep inspection on all types of files, on all types of storage that you have, storage formats that you have for the data. And for a full list of what's compatible with Amazon Macie, you can go to our public documentation. I will also provide the links to it, as part of the deck after the session today. But there are certain types of data file types that Macie can scan, and you have to ensure that data is available in the scope of your job. And once we get to the pricing and availability perspective from an Amazon Macie, I'll talk about how the scope and the features that we have talked so far affect being a cost-effective deployment with Amazon Macie. And then the last part of this is automating the actions that you take when you discover sensitive data types, right? It might be and whenever Amazon Macie discovers sensitive data types in your own data, it creates findings. Every finding will have detailed information in a JSON format about what type of data was discovered, how many number of occurrences, what was the paths to the S3 location, when was the particular job run, what was the finding, what job this finding was a part of, so that you have that lineage from, where was the job run, how long since the last job was run, and things like that. And all of these findings are sent to two locations, right? One is Amazon EventBridge, previously used to be called CloudWatch Events. So with Amazon EventBridge, you would be able to integrate Amazon Macie findings into any number of tools and third-party products as well, right? It's a event bus, a centralized event bus that you can integrate into any number of solutions. From standard AWS Lambda functions, which can read from Amazon EventBridge event bus and take action on them, to third-party products that can plug into your event bus and do more on these findings. Similarly, the findings are also sent into AWS Security Hub. AWS Security Hub is your central security service for all of AWS security services. It gathers findings from multiple AWS services like Amazon AC, and it also integrates with deep dive services like Amazon Detective, where you'd be able to deep dive into a particular finding to understand the root cause of the problem. So with these integrations, Amazon Macie can be scaled to automate all of the actions that you can take on top of the sensitive data. And apart from the integrations, you can also export results into an S3 bucket for further analysis. This could be standard analysis using Athena, or you might have other tools that can read from this S3 bucket and provide you a security posture, or generate reports, or even take actions further down the pipeline to remediate some of these security issues that might have found in your data set. So that's what you can do with Amazon Macie, right? So far we have discussed about Amazon Macie being able to show you that a single at a single place, showing you a dashboard of what the security posture across your Amazon S3 environment, and then ability to go into your data sets, scan your data sets, and find sensitive data types that either come standard with Amazon S3 or your own custom sensitive data types, and doing this at a scale across your AWS accounts, and then taking actions once you have sensitive data discovered, taking actions, either manual or even automating these actions to make sure the security incidents are closed as soon as possible. Right? So that's at a high level. That's how Amazon Macie works, right? It continuously evaluates your S3 environments, discovers that sensitive data, and takes action on them. So let's take a look at some use cases. Where can you use this service today, right? One of the core use cases is assessing your data privacy and security, right? Like I said, it gives you that single pane of dashboard look into what's available, what's happening on your Amazon S3 environment. So it gives you that right level of data security and the sensitive data privacy across your AWS environment. That's one of the core use cases. Another one is maintaining the regulatory compliance. So every regulatory compliance has different types of sensitive data that it needs to protect, as well as the frequency of how frequently do you need to look for this sensitive data, right? So to meet all of those requirements, you can create your custom sensitive data discovery jobs, the periodic schedule that satisfies your requirements. The next one is identifying sensitive data in data migrations. This is an interesting use case that we've seen customers implement, where you might be moving data from a third-party system into AWS, or your data centers into AWS, or even in your own AWS environment. Let's say, for example, you have RDS or Aurora databases with data in AWS environment, right? You can export that data sets into S3 and have Amazon Macie scan your data sets at a periodic interval. So what does it give you is it gives you that look into what's available in your data sets, so that you can make a decision on what type of data classification that needs to be assigned to a particular data set. You have a database. Who can access the database, right? Amazon Macie can give you information on what type of data, that's of sensitive data, is available in that data set, which translates into a particular level of classification that you need to assign to that data set. So as of today, Amazon Macie is available in 17 AWS commercial regions, available globally. You can enable Amazon Macie with a single click from your AWS console. Right today, as of today, it supports Amazon S3 as the target for these sensitive data discovery jobs and your security posture. And from a pricing perspective, there is two dimensions where Amazon Macie charges you. The first one is inventory valuation. This is the security posture that I mentioned, where it's looking at your S3 environments, trying to find out how many S3 buckets are shared outside of your AWS organization, how many of them are encrypted, and so on and so forth. Right? That's the first dimension. It's a fixed price for every single S3 bucket that you have. So as you increase the number of S3 buckets in your environment, that pricing changes. And then the second part is sensitive data discovery job. This is the variable part of the pricing dimension, meaning it depends on the amount of data processed as part of your job, right? So for example, if you have an S3 bucket that has 1 terabytes of data, and you create a sensitive discovery job to scan the data within that S3 bucket, right? And within that 1 terabyte, Macie will only scan the file types supported. The list that I've just showed you: documents, XML files, JSON documents, PDF documents, and things like that, right? Any files it cannot scan, you won't be charged for it. So it reduces the scope of the job automatically. And then you can also you can also define the scope within your job, like a bucket or a prefix, so that you can limit the amount of data scanned by Amazon Macie, which is important, important for your classifications. That's the variable part of it. So you're only charged for the amount of data scanned by the discovery job. And then Amazon Macie also has a free trial, includes 30 days of S3 bucket inventory and bucket level security and access control assessment at no cost. This is the first of those pricing dimensions. But then sensitive discovery data also has 1 GB of data processed every month for free. And this is not part of the 30-day free trial. This is perpetual. Every month, it doesn't expire. Every month, you get 1 GB of free data that you can scan using Amazon Macie. So that's the pricing dimensions of it. And to get started with Amazon Macie, go into your S3 console. If you have multiple AWS accounts, please identify an administrator account beforehand. Create that as the Macie administrator account and join every other AWS account as member accounts, and then enable Amazon Macie across these AWS accounts and regions, and then you have your dashboards ready within a few hours. And that's all I had for today. Thanks, Ron, and over to you. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about the security within S3 environments.